creaky old wooden door of the roadside bar swung open and a small figure stepped inside. A sliver of fading sunlight cut through the smoky air, and for a moment, the laughter and chatter stopped. Every pair of tattooed eyes turned toward the entrance. She could not have been more than 16 or 17 years old. A worn leather jacket hung loose on her slight frame. Her sneakers were muddy, and her jeans were torn at the knees. Her messy ponytail and tired face spoke of long miles and harder days. She paused, clutching her jacket as if it were armor, while the men surrounding her stared on in confusion, disbelief and humor. The laughter began, not cruel, just surprised. Then it grew louder. The Iron Wolves, surely one of the toughest biker clubs around, had never seen a teenage girl walk into their bar alone. These were men who lived by the road, by loyalty, and by rules older than she was. The biggest of them, a man named Tank, leaned back in his chair and boomed out a laugh. "What's this? A lost Girl Scout?" he said. The room erupted again, laughter, bottles clinking, boots pounding against the floor. But the girl didn't move. She stood her ground, breathing slow and steady until the noise began to fade. That's when they noticed the patch on the back of her jacket. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength of silent courage, please like this video, comment below, and subscribe to Real Kindness Stories. Because what happened next will remind you that true loyalty never fades. The patch wasn't new. Its colors had faded, and the edges were frayed, but the words were clear. Iron Wolves, founding member. Laughter died instantly. Chairs ceased creaking. Every man in that bar fell silent. That patch wasn't something anybody could buy. It was earned. A mark of loyalty and respect from the original riders who'd built this club decades ago. The girl turned, meeting their eyes. Her voice was trembling, but her courage held. "This jacket belonged to my dad," she said softly. Eli Rivers. A chill ran through the room. Everyone knew that name. Eli Rivers, one of the best riders the Iron Wolves had ever known. A man who lived with honor and died saving a family from a burning car on Route 66. None of them had seen his daughter since the funeral. And now she stood there with his jacket on, his legacy on her shoulders. Her name was Mera, and she hadn't come to talk about the past. "Mom's sick," she said, her voice catching. "The bills keep coming, and no one will help us. But Mom always said, Dad's brothers would never let us fall." The words hit like thunder. The same men who had laughed before now hung their heads in silence. Gone was the laughter. In its place were feelings of guilt and memory. They had forgotten their promise to Eli. Tank, the man who had laughed the loudest, slowly stood. He spoke in a voice that cracked. "Kid," he said quietly, "you shouldn't have had to come here all by yourself." Tank removed his cap and rubbed his hands over his face. The bikers in the room exchanged a look-wordless communication that spoke volumes. It was in their gazes, and it seemed that a silent decision had been taken. That night, Mera didn't ride home alone. She rode in a convoy of roaring engines and blinding headlights, a wall of steel and thunder cutting through the night. The Iron Wolves were back, not as outlaws, but as brothers keeping a promise they had forgotten long ago. Well, the sun rose the next morning, and the quiet little neighborhood was abuzz. People were peeking out their windows in disbelief because a dozen bikers were working side by side in Mera's yard, painting walls, repairing fences, carrying groceries, and fixing anything that time had broken. And for the first time in years, Mera's mum smiled. But this wasn't just about repairs. Something deeper had shifted inside the Iron Wolves. Mera had reminded them of who they were and who they used to be. Her courage had rekindled the brotherhood spirit. What started as one act of kindness became a movement. The Iron Wolves began organizing charity rides, raising money for veterans, feeding families in need, and visiting children's hospitals. They rode with pride, not just for the thrill, but for a purpose. And at the front of every ride, leading them all, was Mera on her father's motorcycle, newly restored. The same bike Eli Rivers rode so many times before now rumbled on the highway beneath his daughter's seated determination, bright as chrome. The townspeople named her the Little Wolf, a name of respect and love. Months later, at the annual gathering of the Iron Wolves, Tank handed Mera a small cloth bundle. Inside was a brand new patch, custom made. It read, "Legacy Rider," and below it, in smaller letters, "Daughter of Eli Rivers." The whole hall was silent as she sewed her patch under her father's. No single eye was dry. Her voice, though firm, was full of emotion when she looked up. "Dad used to say," she whispered, "the patch doesn't make you strong. It reminds you who you ride for." The words hung in the air like a prayer. In that moment, every man in the room understood. It wasn't leather or thread that held their brotherhood together. It was love. It was loyalty. It was courage. The kind that doesn't need to roar to be heard. From that day forward, wherever the Iron Wolves rode, people knew the girl up front, the one in her father's jacket, her own patch shining next to his. Mera wasn't only carrying on her father's legacy, she was building her own. If this story has touched your heart, then please like, share and subscribe to Real Kindness Stories. Every click counts to spread more real stories of love, redemption and humanity. Before you go, tell us in the comments, what does loyalty mean to you? Have you ever known someone whose quiet strength inspired you? And as the Iron Wolves thundered down the open road once more, the wind caught Mera's jacket, the twin patches shining in the sun, a reminder that kindness, like legacy, never fades.